everyone, I'm Amy Irons. Thank you for joining Fuel Change for the Workforce of the Future Driving a Just Transition event. As we approach COP26, Scotland's move to net zero has never been more important. At Fuel Change, the objective is to create a carbon neutral Scotland for the next generation, designed by the next generation, as they are the very people who will potentially suffer the consequences of climate change. We need their creativity and spark to create hope for the future. The conference centres around just transition, and the reality is that many of our young people, they're concerned about their future employment and the skills that they might require. Many quality jobs could be lost, and we need to transition into new, equally attractive opportunities. As we do so, Fuel Change wants to ensure employers out there have the opportunity to listen to what our young people have to say about climate action, and not just those who are already climate activists, but from those who currently feel, well, they can't make a difference. The following 30 minutes captures the highlights from the Fuel Change Question Time event hosted at the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre in Glasgow earlier this month. The panel and audience are a mix of senior school students, apprentices and employers and climate specialists. The aim was to capture the mood and views of the next generation as they look towards their future. As you will see, the approach was to set the scene of what life may be like in 2030 if we take climate action or not. Our panel and audience gave us their thoughts, as well as discussing some really great ideas as to what we can all do to tackle this global challenge. Some of the incredible Fuel Change apprentices are live on this session today, so please do feel free to ask them any questions in the chat box. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Amy Irons and I am thrilled to be your host for this evening. On behalf of Fuel Change, I'm delighted to welcome you to this fabulous event, Workforce of the Future, Driving a Just Transition. And I'm joined by a rather fabulous panel that you can see here. We have our climate scientists, Ian and Izzy, who can take us through a lot of interesting points, and we have our representatives of the future generation. We have Victoria, we have Amy, Anna and Ryan. Really, really excited to hear your thoughts as we have this debate. And throughout this session, your thoughts are also important, and we would welcome you to please get involved with this conversation as we talk about what the workforce might look like in 2030. Now, why does 2030 matter? Well, it's only 9 years away. It's not that far into the future. It's in the lifetime of the next Parliament, and by then the Scottish Government have pledged to reduce carbon emissions by 75%. So not a lot of time to do it. And at Fuel Change, well, they have promised to change the conversation. They think that patronising young people and telling them to make a difference is not the way. They want to engage young people into what we need to do to change our future and really engage them to create that change. And yeah, I'm very pleased that we can now pass over to Ian, who's going to talk us through just exactly what the scenario of 2030 could look like when we're talking about the workplace. Ian, it's over to you.
Thanks, Amy. I'm going to start off with a little anecdote from COP1, which I was at. And it was at that time I felt my job as an activist was to buy time for the next generation of people who would come in their waves. There would be so many of them, and they would wake up to this challenge. And that's you guys. So please challenge us, because make my life worth living, please. All right. So yeah, 2030. What do we need to change? Well, I'll give you some statistics of the things we need to change. At the moment, 37% of carbon emissions come from the food system, and that's only one measurement of our impact. Over half of the habitable land on planet Earth is used to grow mainly three cereal crops. We need new plant biologists to get us out of this very, very precarious situation, ones that can grow without fertilisers and still keep people healthy. Huge amounts of those crops go towards feeding cows for meat and for milk, and we need to get away from doing that. Did you know that of all the animals on planet Earth, 4% of them are wild? The other 96% are farmed animals, mainly cows and pigs. And the grains for these cows and pigs come at the expense of the Amazon rainforest. They require artificial fertilisers to make them grow, which destroy the soil that they're growing in, and those artificial fertilisers come from oil and gas, which we need to get off. How are we going to feed ourselves? It's also true that when we're feeding these cows with the grains that we need, it's a truth, roundabout, roughly, that it takes 10 kilograms of grain to put 1 kilogram of meat onto an animal. We could be taking those 10 kilograms of wheat and feeding it to people. That grain is also sprayed with pesticides, which also comes from fossil fuels. Those pesticides kill the bees, which we need to fertilise, pollinate 2/3 of our food. Something's seriously not adding up here. Modern agriculture is totally destructive. The planet can't bear it. Digitalisation can support this transformation through localised shopping and production, so we can use technology to take waste out of the system. It's not about cutting down waste and making less waste. It's about designing it out of the system to begin with. Now, how are we going to consume our products? Well, we have to start buying local, which lots of people do, you know, but it's a pretty niche market at the moment. But the truth is, buying local saves carbon and supports local jobs. We're going to replace buying products with consuming utility. So we've already mentioned this earlier. You won't pay for cars, you'll pay for mobility. We won't pay for heat, you're going to pay for comfort. This is the circular economy in action, and it's going to open up huge opportunities for companies. Any fossil fuels that are still burnt are probably going to be in line with carbon capture technology, but you know, fossil fuels as a way of producing energy is just going to be too insecure anyway. What's happened in the last 2 weeks in Britain with the gas markets has just shown that abundantly, made it abundantly clear. And the truth is that burning fossil fuels is a total waste of a material which is unbelievably useful. It can be used for a myriad of things. Putting it in a car so that they can just drive from A to B is absolutely scandalously, ridiculous thing to do. We're going to need massive retraining programs for all of this. The jobs are going to be there because COP26 in this country will drive it. Solar, wind and battery energy is going to boom because the costs are going to plummet just as the costs of fossil fuels are going to rise, and that can't be stopped. New materials and designs are going to come up, and the potential for new business models in industries that we can't imagine yet are going to be everywhere. So the lady that asked about the mines earlier, geothermal power, great, super abundant. We're going to tap into it because Scotland's got a history of oil mines, oil drills and mines. We're going to buy into that, so great.
Yeah, so when you say 2030, you're right, 9 years away, and I'm sitting here thinking, right, what are the changes I can make now to make that happen? I was amazed, Ian, when you said that it takes 10 kilos of grain to put on 1 kilo of beef. That's totally madness to me. Maybe a lot of us in here do like to eat red meat, but what I was really interested in what you said, that it wasn't a case, right, we don't need to stop eating red meat tomorrow. We could move more locally as a slower transition, which might be a bit easier for people to take on at a time like this, where climate change is quite overwhelming. So a small change for me, and what I actually really like the thought of, is see if I just make a conscious effort to buy from my local butcher, rather than going to any big supermarket to get meat, which is sourced from somewhere where I'm not too sure about where it is. I could make a small conscious difference to the impact that my food has had on the environment just by shopping differently and shopping more local. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the refillable would be such a better idea. And I just remember, I don't know if it's related to it, that they were talking about, like, years ago, you used to go into, like, a fresh fruit market and just pick your fruit. They didn't used to be packaged. So why has it changed from being like that to what it is right now?
So we've talked a lot about food and packaging, and obviously the choices we make as individuals have a huge impact on everyone else. And one of the main problems with this is that we don't have the information to make educated choices. And so I was wondering if food products in particular, they have information like calories, fats and sugars, Why is there no information on the sustainability of the product, where it came from, how eco-friendly it is? Because I feel if this information was given to us on the product, we would be able to make more educated choices about what we're buying.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because do you know what some sort of shops have started doing? They've put an R where they've said reduced plastic, or this is made from recyclable material. And I know personally, now that I'm kind of tuned into this, if I've got 2 plastic bottles sitting in front of me and I have to buy one, because like we're saying, maybe there's no options out there, maybe there's not a refill water tap within a building. I now go for the one that's either made from recycled material or is 100% recyclable, because that's a choice I can make. So you're right, I think definitely if that's something you request of organisations when they're wrapping their packaging or something like that, so you can totally make that choice and you can make that decision with the money in your pocket because you're choosing where to spend it.
I was going to ask, because like it's all good like saying that like individual people can make more sustainable changes when they're shopping for food, but how are like bigger businesses that need to shop for like dinner halls in those businesses, how are they meant to make those more sustainable options, because they're going to want to go for cheaper choices, but how are they meant to make them, especially like on a much larger scale?
Yeah, I've thought about a situation where, like, when you were saying maybe we need to look back in history, it is maybe we can start encouraging some people to bring back the local trade. So maybe, you know, I know not every single person has a garden, but there usually is a community garden, and yeah, like gardens are nice, but when you know, big fields are nice, but when you compare to what's going on, maybe we need to sacrifice some parts that we love for the sustainability. So think about it, like say you grow potatoes in your garden, I grow strawberries in mine, we can trade with each other. That stops emissions just from passing along. And then if every single person, even if half of the people in the world started growing their own veg, then that would solve most of the problem.
I think we got really used to, like talking about food there, we got really used to being able to have like a banana in December here in Scotland. That's quite mental when you think about it though. Like, where's that come from? You can't grow a banana here. So why we do expect these things now, because we've come to just, because we're so used to it. We're used to getting what we want when we want it right now, and we want it cheap. But maybe that is a tough sacrifice, but maybe that's something we have to change to. Instead of getting a strawberry in December from Spain, we could be getting just strawberries in June, July, August, but from Scotland. And that's maybe just a sacrifice you have to make.
I don't know, you might feel the pressure more than some of us that this social media, Instagram, TikTok, that's what the kids use, but that kind of culture of fast fashion and outfit of the day and you only wear clothes once, is that a pressure that you guys feel? And you're nodding, it's a pressure. You guys, I'm going to guess, do know the impact because you're here and you all have an interest, but do you think there's a lot of other young people who perhaps have that same interest but don't actually realise the impact that fast fashion has on the environment?
Yep, I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think we've been talking about so many amazing things here, but realistically there's a lot of change involved and we have to tap into things that are going to influence that. And I think if you think about social media today, that's in our faces all the time. You know, it's really fueling that consumerism, you know, wanting something the next day, looking at influencers, you know, trying to kind of add to your wardrobe continuously. But how do we actually use social media as, I think, a force for good rather than a force for, probably it's used for quite bad things just now. How do we tap into that more? There's a lot of good stuff going on, but is there more that can be done there, and what would influence people?
I think it will have to start from big stars and influencers themselves. There's a lot of younger generation will be looking up to a lot of famous people at the moment, and I feel like it's them who will have to do the change. They will have to do the change that they want to see in the world.
I just agree with what you're saying. Is fashion, yes, not fashionista, but fashion brand in Glasgow, and we do upcycled denim. We basically are educating as well, and we're trying to do exactly what's been getting said here, is to teach that the journey of clothes from resource use to use of yourself and then waste at the end, and the impact that has on the planet through many, many ways. And the challenge that we find being in Glasgow as a small business is that there is no appetite for anyone to take their eyes off the fast fashion world. And businesses like Shane don't help. Influencers who basically just take the money doesn't help. We do need people. And I've been trying to get some celebrities, maybe you want to come on board. But I've been trying to get some celebrities because that's what you need. You need to get somebody to come across to this side of the fence. And too many of them just take the money. And that's where the influence is. And it has to come. And you can have as many people banging on about stuff and trying to challenge Scottish Government. Doesn't matter. No one's interested. Kids don't want to talk to Scottish Government. That's boring. They want to talk to and be influenced by the people they look up to. And it's not politicians. Doesn't matter how much Sturgeon thinks she's a rock star. She's not. The people who make the difference are them. And they need to come to our side of the fence. So if you want to come and help us out.
But it's interesting what you say, because we see a lot of good work being done now when it comes to sustainable fashion. There's so many local brands that are doing amazing work, but as you see, when you're up against these massive companies that can sell you a pair of jeans for a tenner and they arrive tomorrow, from a consumer's point of view, if you're a young person with a limited budget, trying to break that cycle, isn't it, when sustainable fashion can be more expensive? That's difficult, isn't it?
And it's easy access. And, if you can get something the next day or whatever, and you don't question that 3 returns are going straight to landfill and get burned, we don't question any of these things. Life is easy peasy, but you have to, first of all, know that there's something that you have to learn. And until that point happens, it's difficult to kind of have that conversation. And you need to get across to as many people as possible, social media, whatever, but marketing budgets dictate who gets the airtime.
Brian, what do you think in your workplace? I know you've been involved when it comes to coming up with some innovative ideas and making change in your workplace. What do you think can be done? What examples do you have?
Well, thanks to Field Change, we got offered the opportunity of multiple challenges to a bunch of groups of apprentices. Our challenge, one of the challenges that we took away was what can we do with decommissioned aircrafts? And we, as apprentices, we took that away and went through the Field Change, and we came up with a solution of coming up with a design on how we can recycle old planes into turbines, wind turbines. After that, thanks to our employers, they gave us an extension. They saw the value of it. We're now at a point where we're pretty much nearly got a prototype ready. We're talking about having 3D modeling, actually having a full turbine actually tested and hopefully ready for COP26. And the thing is these turbines, we're hoping to have them around this site. Down at the Clyde, it's very windy. So there's the renewable energy for that. And our company's not the only company that's interested in wind turbines. There is companies out there, but the recycled materials is untapped gold. It's not just planes, it's cars, boats. They have boats in India just sitting miles across the beaches. They can recycle these if we can just break that tie between recycling that into turbines.
You told me how many planes did you say?
There's about 40,000 plus. That was just me looking on Google and and adding each place that I found. 40,000 plus planes in graveyards right now, and there's 36,000 planes in the air, and they're going to be coming out. Their lifespan are only about 15 to 20 years, and then there's going to be another 40,000 new planes. So if we can make, say from one plane we can make 1,000 turbines, then think about it's thousands upon thousands. Every single person's house could have a turbine, and that would reduce their costs, their electrical costs and everything. It's just, it needs to be focused on. I think there's a lot to it.
Amy, what's your thoughts when it comes to how your workplace can help you make some of the changes that you would want to make in the process? As individuals, a lot of us want to be able to make a change, but do businesses and bosses have a role in helping individuals do that?
Yeah, well, I'm a part of Field Change this year, and I didn't know anything about Field Change, but my company put a group of apprentices forward for it, and knowing what I know now, I wish I had actually put myself forward for it years ago, because it's such a good thing to be a part of, and we've learned so much. And the main thing that we actually got from it was knowing the full thing that's about changing people's mindsets more than anything. You can come up with all these ideas and anything. Unless you like actually speak to people and get them to understand the point you're trying to make, there's not really much else you can do.
Going back to the girl over there that said about her being a pupil and not having much opportunity, I think in S6 you're about 18, is that right? Our youngest apprentices in our team only just turned 20, so that's not a big massive gap. And I'm an apprentice as well, and last week I hosted a call with all my principals and seniors asking them to help us, and they backed us 100%. They've offered their resources to actually allow us to progress our idea. So it definitely comes down to who's going to be supporting you, but it's also good to seek that support as well, because we wouldn't have got that opportunity without going forward and asking for it ourselves.
So I think from a kind of employer perspective, there's a lot of things that can be done. The first one for me is increasing efficiency of what you've already got. So whether that be street lighting, converting that to LED, so you're using less energy and electricity. Looking at, during our project, we looked at the effect that drag has on HGVs. And one of the reports I've seen that up to 50% of the fuel is wasted based on just poor aerodynamics of HGVs, and that can be reduced up by about half to like 25–26%. So looking at things like that, where you can increase efficiency, so you're using less energy or using less fuel, which then goes on to emit less emissions. I think that's probably the first step that employers need to take.
I think that I welcome the comments that were made there, and I think any employer, would be mad not to listen to the ideas that are coming from the younger people within the business, but also within older people too. But certainly the sea change that we're seeing in businesses now does seem to be coming from the younger generation, and it's their future at the end of the day. But I think every employer would listen to good suggestions like that.
An employer there, and Sophie down the front, here's another thought.
Well, I think that because we are the younger generation, we need to be taught about these fossil fuels and how they are damaging to us. Well, I know as I've taken physics for 5 years as well as biology, and we talked about wind turbines once in 5 years, and it was shocking. Because I know my mum used to work in oil and gas, and she used to tell me how dangerous it was, how horrible it was. And now she's has that business with Scottish Power and stuff, and how they do a lot about renewables now. And a lot of people in my year group are going into engineering, they're going into science, but they're all like, oh, I want to work in oil and gas. I'm like, no, that's not where the money is. If you want to make money, you need to be, well, you want to work in like renewables, because that is where we're going to need a big push of brains, we're going to need a big push of engineers, a big push of people with passion for it. And we're not taught about these things, so how can you be passionate about something you don't know about?
Well done, Sophie.
Yeah, what I was bowled over by was the fact that the young people at the event were talking really passionately and had some fantastic ideas about where they see themselves in the future. 2030 is not long away now. Who'd have thought we'd have had a pandemic for 2 years as we've just had? And these youngsters are coming up with some fantastic ideas. They're passionate about the future and want to take part in it and want to help form and mold their future. And we need to be listening to them right now.
Yeah, so the question time fuel change event I thought was really, really positive. There was a lot of good energy in the room, and it was great to see, involvement all the way from kind of teenagers at school all the way up to the employers. And I think based on the two scenarios, 2030 and the 2045 discussion, there's some really good points being made. the 2030 one, there's quite a lot of ambitious targets, I thought, but you know, depending on how the technology advances, they could be achieved. And the 2045 discussion again was looking at a bit bigger picture, and I thought that was again some of the good points made by the panel and the crowd. One of the biggest points I picked up on, I thought, was that with the school kids that came along, there was only one guy and the rest female, and I thought maybe there's a bit of a divide there. Is it not appealing to younger guys? So I think it'd be quite good to get some form of kind of push to get more younger guys involved in that kind of climate discussion, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of good jobs and opportunities for them, and they need to be involved in that going forward.
Yeah, so my reflections from the night, I mean, it was fantastic to hear the voice of so many young people. I mean, I'm a young professional myself, but there were school pupils there that came all the way from Falkirk, so it was fantastic to hear what they had to say about their vision for the future, with and without climate change being addressed. That was really quite interesting to hear, and I took something from it. I took that the youth of today are really, really engaged, and I'd include myself in that. I mean, I'm 21 now, but I'm still involved and still keen to hear what young people have to say about the the issues that we're currently facing, the global challenges that we're going through right now.
So I think for once, young people are actually like, oh yeah, I can really get behind this, and this is in a language that relates to me, and there's people on that stage there that I can see myself being in the next couple of years. So I honestly thought it was just fantastic. It was like there was a great buzz on the night. Everyone took a lot away from it, and again, the school kids on the bus home were absolutely buzzing. They were all saying like, what can we do? We would love for Ian to come and speak at our school, and we really identify with him. So no, all in all, a fantastic event. Really grateful to have been there, and can't wait to do it again one day.
It was actually really eye-opening to see how engaged and professional our young workforce were on the evening, and how they have been on the challenges. Letting them understand that they have the permission and the autonomy to deliver the changes that we need will be something that we will continue to support with this and other campaigns, and firmly embed it into our environmental culture change and our strategies.
So what a great event, such a good blend of employers, young apprentices, kids from senior school, as well as inspirational speakers coming together. There was also climate change scientists, and really showcasing that stark reality of the current situation and what might actually happen if we don't play our part in tackling climate change. So much to think about, really enjoyed it.
Well, that's a wrap for our 2030 discussion. It is great to hear so many young people are thinking of their future and how they can help solve climate change. Fuel Change has proven that spending time empowering our next generation by allowing them to generate real-life solutions to some of the world's most pressing climate challenges, it really can create a huge difference. Be inspired by the youth in your workplace and let them have their say. Contact Fuel Change and they will be delighted to assist you. On behalf of Fuel Change, thank you so much for tuning into the discussion today. If you'd like to watch the full version of the Question Time event, it is on the Fuel Change website now. Thank you very much for watching.